Elijah.
Elijah? Yeah. Oh, you got a praying name.
Yes.
And that was powerful, man. That was powerful. Pastor proud of you. Pastor proud of you. That was good.
Chapter 12.
Chapter 12. Chapter 12. 2 Kings.
In the 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash became king, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Jehoash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. But the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. And Jehoash said to the priests, all the money of the dedicated gifts that are brought into the house of the Lord, each man's census money, each man's assessment money, and all the money that a man purposes in his heart to bring into the house of the Lord, let the priests take it themselves, each from his constituency, and let them repair the damages of the temple, wherever any dilapidation is found. Now it was so by the 23rd year of King Jehoash that the priests had not repaired the damages of the temple. So King Jehoash called Jehoiada the priest and the other priests and said to them, why have you not repaired the damages of the temple? Now therefore do not take more money from your constituency, but deliver it for repairing the damages of the temple. And the priests agreed that they would neither receive more money from the people nor repair the damages of the temple. Then Jehoiada the priest took a chest, bored a hole in its lid, and set it beside the altar on the right side as one comes into the house of the Lord. And the priest who kept the door put there all the money brought into the house of the Lord. So it was, whenever they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priest came up and put it in bags and counted the money that was found in the house of the Lord. Then they gave the money which had been apportioned into the hands of those who did the work, who had the oversight of the house of the Lord. And they paid it out to the carpenters and builders who worked on the house of the Lord, and to masons and stone cutters, and for buying timber and hewn stone to repair the damage of the house of the Lord, and for all that was paid out to repair the temple. However, there were not made for the house of the Lord basins of silver, trimmers, sprinkling bowls, trumpets, any articles of gold or articles of silver from the money brought into the house of the Lord. But they gave that to the workmen, and they repaired the house of the Lord with it. Moreover, they did not require an account from the men into whose hand they delivered the money to be paid to workmen, for they dealt faithfully. The money from the trespass offerings and the money from the sin offerings was not brought into the house of the Lord. It belonged to the priest. Hazael, king of Syria, went up and fought against Gath and took it. Then Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. And Jehoash, king of Judah, took all the sacred things that his fathers Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah, kings of Judah, had dedicated in his own sacred things, and all the gold found in the treasuries of the house of the Lord and in the king's house, and sent them to Hazael, king of Syria. Then he went away from Jerusalem. Now the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Judah? And his servants arose and formed a conspiracy and killed Joash in the house of Millo, which goes down to Silla, or Sila. For Josachar, the son of Shemaiah, and Jehozabad, the son of Shomar, his servants, struck him, so he died, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. Then Amaziah, his son, reigned in his place.
Wow.
acts of Joash and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Judah?
Most of the time, well, not most, all of them, there are frequent times when the king dies, they say what you just heard in that verse. He died. All acts he did was recorded. Are they not recorded in the King's Chronicle? Did they record everything he did? So and so died. Was he not? Was his actions not recorded? And the fact is, it says the acts are recorded, but you do understand that all that those people did wasn't recorded.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot wasn't recorded, there's a lot it is known. So it says basically he's saying all the recorded acts are there, but there's a lot of stuff we don't know. This particular passage in chapter 12 kind of has some conflict with the account given in Chronicles chapter 24, I think it is, where the account's a little different. The first thing we got a problem with, well, remember, this is the boy last week that was king at 6, 7 years old. Mm-hmm. Remember? Mm-hmm. He made king. Mm-hmm. He's living in the temple with his kind of like adopted stepfather, who is the priest. Mm-hmm. So quite naturally, being in the temple at 7 years old, he's real familiar with the temple. Let me read this little paragraph, because at number 7, came up a lot. There's an unusual reoccurrence in these verses of reference to the number 7. In Hebrew, it appears in the prophet names, Beersheba, the house of Zibiah, and Jehoash, who rescued Jehoash. The number turns up again in reference. The coronation takes place in the 7th year of Jehu's reign, which is also the 7th year of Athaliah's reign. Joash is 7 years old. 7 is a very important number in Jewish history, but its repetition here seems to have no particular significance. It might just be a coincidence that there's a lot of 7s there. But let's see how it goes. He's familiar with the temple. So it takes, it's not unusual that he would, he'd have a certain positive feeling about the temple. He's raised in the temple. He plays in the temple. He knows. So the fact that he wants to keep the temple nice is not unusual. His adopted stepfather is the priest. So quite naturally, his leading and guiding Joash, and by the way, his name's on this list. You got Joash, right after Athaliah, and Joash is really Jehoash, or Jehoash, I should say. Same person, different spelling. So y'all make sure we keep that straight. How many of y'all didn't get the handout last week? You wasn't here last week, were you?
Ceremony.
I'll get y'all. You take a picture? Or you take a picture and then give it to them. Yeah. The lady, my secretary, Sister Debbie, she gonna make some copies for us. I'll get you. He's young, about 7 years old, so he's probably taking a lot of guidance from the priests. And he seemed to be, says, he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He's favorable, and seemed like, according to Chronicles, it makes it look as though he was all right until the priest died. When the priest dies, then it's kind of, shaky. Other things, but we'll talk about that later. Now, so that it shouldn't be any surprise. He wants to make the repairs to the temple. Okay. He calls the priest, tells him, okay, you need to start making repairs to the temple. Take some money to make the repairs to the temple. After some times, the repairs are not made for whatever reason. Now, I know what y'all want to do. Y'all want to say the preacher stole the money.
What happened to the money?
You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't say the preacher stole it. I said, what happened?
That's what I'm talking about. No, that's the first thing coming to their mind. They don't tell us what happened to the money. All they said was that the repairs were not made. You need to understand, there was a part of the allocation that they paid the priest anyway. In fact, when you read, there's a certain part they had to keep paying the priest because it's strictly ordered in Leviticus that the priest got a certain section, like for a sin offering, a fellowship offering, people on the peace offering. The peace offering was like a fellowship offering. The fellowship offering was an offering offered after every sacrifice. One of the richest studies I did was when I did Leviticus. I tell everybody, you ought to read Leviticus. You will never understand Hebrews if you don't read Leviticus. Hebrews is the commentary on Leviticus, and vice versa. So that in the sacrificial system, they had different sacrifices. But after the sin offering, everything is right between God and the offerer. So the priest and the offerer had a meal in front of the tabernacle, representing peace, fellowship. It indicates that things are now right between God and the offerer. Okay? So there was no uncommon thing for the priest to have a meal with people. People misunderstand, like for the burnt offering, well, I gotta get it straight. Burnt offering, they burn everything. But anyway, most of the time when they offered offerings, they give God's part, they would burn God's part. But the other part they give to the priest. You know what God's part was most of the time? The fat. And the blood. Well, y'all don't eat that no way. Well, y'all eat the fat. I ain't talking about that. Well, y'all don't really eat all of that, because most of the time, by the time y'all get it, the butcher to cut most of that fat off of that. But anyway, that's what they would basically burn. So what I'm trying to say, most of the part they burned to God was not something they really wanted. Most of the meat went to the priest. So that about time Jesus gets on the feet, you talking about Sadducees, the priests they got a pretty good portion. You gotta remember, when they go into the promised land, and every tribe gets their section. Priests didn't get no section, remember that? They didn't have no land. He said, y'all take care of the priests. The priests got their portion from the offerings, but people don't know that. And I know y'all really start tripping now. That in the Old Testament, the tithe, all the tithe went to the priest. The church was basically kept off of offerings. Those weak starved if that was, well, first of all, they don't tithe. No. See, that's the confusion part. So you say, well, let them live off the offering. We can live off the offering. Well, the reason why we have more offering than we have tithe is more people don't tithe. So basically, everything is offering, just about. But then basically, you could, ain't nowhere in the world you won't be able to. Now, Church of God in Christ, that's why the preachers have more money than the church. Church be running down, the preacher riding around the cat back because they let the tithe go to the preacher. I know two Baptist preachers tried that. Both of them got voted out, but that's another subject. Anyway, You don't want the whole concept of the priest getting money wasn't something new, is what I'm trying to tell you. The problem was, for whatever reason, and you really can't, I can't tell you, it's probably true, they may have misallocated the funds. That's definitely a possibility, but I really can't say that. It could have been he got sidetracked on doing some other stuff that had to be done, and the funds that were supposed to be used to repair the temple just now the commentator, so they implied that what he did was let Laban handle the funds instead of the preacher. Okay, which technically could be the case, but you know, this Southern Baptist boy will tell you about Laban. You really don't solve a problem by letting the Laban handle the money. See, the problem ain't the preachers don't know how to handle money. We're not talking about education, we're talking about integrity. Yeah. So if you can have a crooked preacher, you can have a crooked Laban. And you don't improve the situation with a crooked Laban. You got to like it. You want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. But the idea, I had a preacher Sunday, this past Sunday, in fact. He has one of these mega churches, different locations. And he was saying they don't allow a salaried person to recommend a raise for the salaried people at the church. His logic is that if you allow the salaried people to recommend a raise for the pastor, what they really want to do is get a raise for their head. So if you recommend we raise the pastor 10%, then we're going to get a raise for everybody. So what he does, it makes sense to me, is he has, they call them elders, but basically he has officers who are not being paid by the church, who are the only ones who can recommend raises for the salaried people. That makes sense to me. Because again, we're not dealing with competency, we're talking about integrity. That's the thing. I really don't care who, I don't want to have the money. And when I first got here, I made sure my name was taken off everything. Any nigga say I stole the money, lying. I can't steal the money. I sign checks, I don't have nowhere in the world I can steal. I don't have access. The money goes back to the finance. When I go back there, I speak to them. They used to have a television, I used to with the football game sometimes. But they stopped that too, that's another sermon. But the concept is that when you get the right people handling the money, the right things get done. Now, in my experiences, people have a tendency to give better when they can see their money is being used for good. The guy who preached back, he's gonna come preach with me again. The guy where they had both of my parents' funeral. That church wasn't built overnight. They started in a multi-purpose building. Cathedral of Faith there, Oakland, Jehu of Israel. They were supposed to start building on the sanctuary. At the same time they built on the sanctuary, the contributions come in pretty good. So they ended up building an education building in addition to building the sanctuary. That's the last thing they built. They bought a funeral home, they had bought property, they had done things. And what I'm trying to tell you is, that we talk about it, he says, he goes through a special effort, the same thing that boy who preached my anniversary in Houston, T.R. Williams. He says he goes through special efforts to make sure the people can see progress. Because if they could see where their money is going, they have a tendency to want to give. So in the history of this church, the time the most money ever came in this church since I've been pastor, when we was building this building. People pass by there, they see all that dirt dug up, they see the bricks, on and all that stuff. They see progress, they have a tendency to give. And most people want to do the right thing. They want to give. See, so when you start talking about money, it gets kind of sensitive. You want to mess the church up, you start making people doubt the people handling the money. You know, I told my deacon trustees all y'all been to me. I made a point that a lot of things I knew could cause some confusion, but I never made a point of trying to make people doubt the integrity of folk in the money room. They ain't gonna help nobody. They gonna hurt all of us, because if people think Negroes crooked in the money kind of room, they ain't gonna contribute. If they don't contribute, don't get paid. It ain't my motive to want to not get paid. You know what I'm saying? So you want some integrity. So you gotta be careful how you handle that kind of stuff. So you got Joash asked the question, why are the repairs not being made? You see it right there. Now in chapter 12, do you see anywhere in that chapter where they told you why it wasn't being repaired? Well, now if they didn't tell you, don't be trying to add to it. If they didn't tell you, that means we don't know. Okay? Now, it is obvious that what he does is take out of the hands of the priests the responsibility for the restoration. What he did, he got a big old box and put it at the door of the temple, put a hole in the top, told the people to put the money in the box. When they got the money in the box, he took the money and gave it directly to the carpenter, the builders. Say, here, there's the money, y'all use it to repair the temple. And that's how the temple got repaired. The people who were responsible for repairing the temple got the resources to buy the materials and repair the temple. So there was no question about whether or not they're going to take the money to be getting paid, because it says the men had integrity with the people. We felt like everything's all right. Y'all feel it?
Yeah.
Anybody got a problem with what I just talked about? Anybody got something you want to get off your chest? Why the parking lot is in the classroom tonight? Since y'all ain't saying anything, let me tell you what they did this morning. Yes, sir?
Did you say why he did it? Why he didn't hurt it? Or maybe why he did it?
We'll talk about it when we get home. Okay, now, they asked a question about tithing. I did mention tithing. This is one thing I said I hadn't said yet. Even if the finance room was full of crooks, Jesse James, some other crooks. What's that boy name in Chicago? Al Capone. You still don't have an excuse for not paying your taxes. You hear me? God does not excuse you from doing what you're supposed to do. just because they don't do what they are supposed to do. So if Ayala is in the finance room misusing the money, and I know she's a crook, I still don't have a right to stop paying my tithe. Because God holds me responsible for how he blesses me.
Yeah.
You feel?
Yeah.
So whatever he blesses me with, I'm responsible to give 1/10 of that back to him. Y'all feel?
Yes.
Could we? I hear what you're saying.
No, you're not. But say it again.
No, I do. I hear what you're saying.
Good.
It would just be hard for me to know that if there were crooks in the finance room, like you said, right? For me to give a tithe knowing that they're going to be crooked with it.
Okay. But see, this is the point. This is the point. This is the point. This is the point. See, worry about it. I can't use that for an excuse not to give.
No, I would still give, but could I give somewhere else?
See what I'm talking about? That's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Since I know they're crooks, I do other stuff. You know how many times I heard that, John? I had a man say, well, real mom, I help children, I help the widows, I help some people, and I give it, but I just don't bring it to the church. But I know what the Bible
No,
says.
I would give it to another church.
Well, he says, if you're going to get another church, you need to go to another church. I tell you all the time, you don't trust where you are, go where you can trust. But this is the point, He says, bring ye all your tithes, what? Into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. Meat, what he
There's no
said,
longer a
meat.
storehouse if they're being crooked.
He cowed. See, that may be in my house. And prove you now, here which said the Lord, if I will not open unto you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. See, again, this is a promise God is making to you. Now, you got to understand something. Y'all ain't going to get away with that money.
And you gonna miss your blessing.
She got to deal with God. See, what y'all understand? See, I rob Al Capone before I try to rob God. I take on the mob with a 6-shooter, with a BB gun, before I start to take God's money. You know, it takes a certain kind of person to take God's money. So see, first of all, you know, something wrong with you. You're crooked enough to take God's money.
Yeah.
You feel? Another thing is that giving is not the only responsibility you have. You also have the responsibility of bringing your butt to business meeting and deal with church business in the right setting. See what folks, especially black pastors, want to do. You want to allocate that part to the pastor. I got to deal with the crazy people in the business meeting. You stay at home, you don't even know what's going on. And when things go south, you don't know what's happening. But you got a responsibility. It's not just let crooks be crooked. But how do they get the job? See, if you got a job, say, I can appoint officers, but I don't vote them in. I'll appoint deacons, but church still is supposed to approve it. Because see, even though I said, this man is, I think he ought to be my deacon, he can't really deacon you if you really don't respect him. I put title on him all day long. If you don't respect him, he can't do that job. So yeah, you have responsibility, you have accountability, but that does not relieve you from your responsibility to God. Oh, I can tell y'all, somebody he do it other way. He was taking care of his women on the side.
That's what his team was.
That's what his time was doing. That's both been his tithe. See, you can't put the money where you want to put the money, and then have nobody call it God's money. You see what I'm saying? No, God said, no, you bring it, and this is what you deal with. You know, now if you want to help some little children, fine. See, when I get them children a little dollar, I ain't taking my tithe money. When I Lord, you know, I handed out $20 Sunday. I'm gonna deduct that from my tithe. No, it don't work like that. You give God money his money. Now, see, it's another thing is you can't deduct from your tithe if you haven't tithe. See, most people don't tithe, they just give. You can't call it offering. Y'all want to call it offering. It's not really offering. Offering is the money above the tithe. So I can't start giving an offering until after I've given
My tithes.
my tithe. If I haven't given my tithe, all I'm really doing is paying on my debt.
Yeah.
Put it in layaway. Lord, I owe you $200. I'm gonna give you $5. But now I owe you $195. And next Sunday I do the same thing. So now I owe you $400. So in other words, I can't. No. You can't do what you want to do and then call that God's work. It don't work like that. But I got a problem with a Christian who claims he loves the Lord and don't want to fix God's house. God's house ought to be the best looking house in the membership. So I got a problem. You got a house that costs $500,000 and then you want to give God a $10,000 check. I got a problem. You got wires hanging, lights hanging, look like it's about to fall down, then you got like you love it low. If you really love God, you want God's house to be the best. I'm not talking about acceptable. God's house ought to be the best house of any house in Bethany. None of us ought to have a house better than God's house. Because God deserves the best. David, I got a problem. I've got a house of cedar. Back then they did the log cabin looking thing. I got a house of cedar, and God is living in a tent. God said, well, now, first of all, David, you kind of insulted me because, you know, when I ever told you I need a house? I'm everywhere. Okay? They put me in no house. But I like your attitude. You want to give me better than what you have. Just so that if you want to give me better, you know, I appreciate that. I like that attitude. Joash, that's Joash big plus. He wanted God's house to be better. Now the problem though, how is it he gets from doing all this good work and then they want to kill it? Well, the devil doesn't need a wife. I mean, Athaliah almost killed him. That's his grandmama. We know why she did it. But it's probably the same logic that she used, the same that could be used for this, that somebody is killing him because they want to take
His spot.
his spot. You know, the problem is, when you look at the next king was his son. The next king was the boy who would have had it anyway. Huh? So it must be more involved. Now in Chronicles they imply, and some said, when he took the job from the priests, that upset some of the priestmen. And they kind of suggest that the insurrection is a cause of the priest being upset because he took that responsibility from them. That's weak, but that's one of the logics of the whole thing. Somebody else suggests that well, in Chronicles, he didn't die the way he died. He died, but they suggested that he went to war and was killed, or was wounded, I should say. Came back for repairs, or from hospice care, and they killed him then. There's a lot of little question marks up in here. But the bottom line is, he's killed by people who are supposed to protect him. He's killed by his cabinet. He's killed by people on the side. Now remember, once upon a time, the priest was the overseer giving him advice. He's dead now. If they did get upset because he took that responsibility of restoration from them, they could have, you know how people do. They could have worked that. I don't know. Again, you don't shake it ground. The one thing we know, they killed the boy.
Yeah.
They killed him. Now, let's deal with this Hazael. Hazael is threatening to attack. Now, in Chronicles, he did attack. Both of them could be right, but the point is that Joash stops the future attacks from Hazael by taking all the treasury, the gold bowls and the bronze brasses, took all and gave it to him. And when he gave it to him, that appeased him and he left, supposedly, by this account. In the Chronicles account, he went there and took it, and in the Chronicle 24, and then they gave him some more and he left. Anyway, he left. And there was, I was reading one account that shocked me. He was saying that Joash had a pretty big army compared to Hazael. But that, again, that was commentary. I didn't read that about it, so I got to research that one again. But at any rate, he ended up dealing with that problem, solving that problem when Hazael leaves, and he just has to deal with his own people. But they end up killing him. Hazael ends up getting his, because remember Babylon ends up getting all of it anyway. They killed everything. The northern king, remember we're in the southern kingdom. This wasn't the northern king. Okay, come on, questions, comments. Y'all got some questions? I know y'all got some questions tonight. I'm ready. Get off your chest. 5 minutes till 8. Any questions? The ones you got any questions?
I have a comment, but I'm gonna keep it to myself.
Thank you. No,
All right.
I can understand people's concern. My contention is this. We all want our church to grow. And the way that the church grows, you keep everything above board. You don't want anybody to falsely accuse you. So don't go around falsely accusing other people.
Yeah.
You don't just call someone's integrity into question, and you have no reason to do that. Especially don't have no facts. You know. And then you got to be saying, when you do a whole lot of negative talk, it doesn't just hurt the person you're talking about. It hurts the entire church. We get upset when you see other churches grow. But one reason you see them growing is because you don't hear all that negative talk. Now let me just inform you. The reason you don't hear the negative talk is not because there's nothing negative to talk about. They just choose not to do so. It's a choice. If you and your husband, if you and your wife having problems, ain't no way in the world I'm gonna know that. Unless you tell. Because if it happens at your house, it ought to stay
At your house.
at your house. I don't have no sympathy for you when you tell me sister so-and-so stole my man. Number one, nobody can steal your man.
Hey.
If he's yours, she can't steal it. Number two, when you tell Miss so-and-so y'all having trouble, you the one put out the welcome mat. Well, to take your man. Because if things were good between you and your man, she never would have found out. You got a problem, work it out at your house. Got a problem, work it out behind closed doors. Deal with it in private. When you come out in public, be united. The two become one flesh. Only time you have a problem is when you let jokers into your stuff. Y'all feel me? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When is the business meeting?
That man, talk to him. He can tell you. I delegated.
I just heard you say y'all don't come to the meetings and you gotta vote. You know, we vote, I didn't know that.
Well, when I was in charge, I used to announce them. We used to have them once a month. Then we started having them once a quarter. And the whole church was invited. They invite the whole church when they have it. They announce them. Sometimes they don't do a good job, but yeah, they have them. And you ask questions. That's the time to discuss church business. You don't discuss church business on Sunday morning in the pulpit. You don't discuss church business on the parking lot. Church business is to be discussed and dealt with in the church's business meeting. Okay. Anybody else?
So we tentatively have a meeting scheduled for November the 8th.
November the 8th?
That's a tentative date, and we set in stone.
That's an open session for everybody?
Yeah, it's a normal business meeting, but it hadn't been officially announced it to anyone yet.
But you do plan on announcing it at the church?
We hadn't had a meeting because of COVID.
Right.
We
Oh,
did have
yeah.
it before.
That was wise. Well, I mean, you say when you do have it, just make sure they announce it.
Yeah.
So people like, they can't say they didn't know. Now, if they announce it on the first Sunday, and you missed the first Sunday, I mean, you didn't know, that ain't his fault. That's your fault. Because it was announced. You just wasn't at church that Sunday. So if you really want to attend, you got to get somebody to come with you. Say, look, I ain't coming Sunday, but see if they announce the meeting. You get it next. If things are only going to be right when together we work for them to be right. I was telling people talk about COVID was so bad and such bad. Say COVID to me seemed like one of the best things happened to Bethany. Because we have had some positives come out of COVID. So my thing is you take what you have, we got a pretty good core, and you build on that. And you build, see the negative people gone. Let them stay gone. I ain't saying they can't come to church, but keep it positive. You see what kind of church we have? See how people saying amen, clapping their hands. Did y'all hear that choir Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear when Glenn Nixon pointed to the soprano section?
2 people.
And they blew the place out
2 people.
with 2
people.
people. I remember that whole section was loaded with soprano singers. It didn't sound as loud as those 2 women did Sunday. 2 people. And I could hear the Lord talking. It don't take a crowd. It just takes some committed people. It don't take a lot of folk. You know. We don't get the kind of money we used to get, but they ain't getting a whole lot less. Because when all them people was coming, they weren't giving no money. They don't give no money. And I said, you know, a lot of times you see these lawyers, doctor types, sophisticated folks, making $200,000 a year. Most of them, not true with all my people. Most of them don't get no money. Look who support most churches. Poor old women on fixed income. Ain't James. People you least expect. Doing the best they can with what they have. Now, I ain't trying to talk about nobody. I'm just saying this. He says, you are to give according to the way God prospers you.
Yeah.
Ain't my job to know how much less to give. Ain't my job. It's my job to know how much Albert Haynes gives. And let me tell you something about God. First, I give offerings. And I pay my tithe. But you know what? Sometimes it's hard to give offering to God. Because, let's say, I got $1,000, I owe to God $100. Suppose I say, oh God, I'm gonna give you this $100, I'm gonna give you $50 there, so I'm gonna give you $150. He'll the offer. But before next Sunday, I look at my mailbox. I got a check for $500. Now I thought I gave an offering. Now I owe him $50. You see what I'm talking about? Now it don't mean, Lord, I paid $50 last Sunday, so I owe you nothing. It ain't like that. You're cheating yourself.
Yeah.
You can't give an offering and then snatch it back. Somebody's dying. No, what I'm saying is, now I'm ready to give him his portion of this.
Yeah.
But before I can give him this portion of this, he gave him another
That's
portion. You see what I'm talking about? That song we sung, y'all don't want to hear a lot. You can't beat God's gift. The more you give to God, the more God gives to you. But that's what I say. When I say that, sound like I'm trying to do preacher talk. Baby, I'm trying to get you to bless you. That's the kind of stuff you can't learn until you get right with God.
Oh, yes.
And when you start getting generous with God, you're going to see God will get generous with you. And some people don't see it because they never take that step. You can testify. How you go from nothing to being a blessing. He'll open up the windows I ain't saying he gonna make you rich, I ain't saying he gonna make you a millionaire. But I'm saying, God will fix it so you won't have those kind of money problems. If you treat him right, he'll treat you right. Last time, any questions? Sick report. Last year, Brother Clint here talked about before, but he went to the hospital a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the emergency room. Had to go to the doctor 2 weeks consecutively. Went last Wednesday, got a good report. He's here looking healthy, good, and so we praise God for that.
Amen.
Praise God.
Amen.
Sister Ellis is still in about the same shape. Let's continue to pray for Kate and her family. Let's pray for Brother Baker. I saw Sister Mary Johnson today. She's doing about the same. Let's continue to pray for her. Pray for Preacher. Just lost his toe. He's in rehab. Lester, you heard anything on that funeral Friday?
Not other than what they told us last week. They gave no time.
I think he said it's gonna be 1 o'clock, but I'm not sure whether they still expect me to preach it. I ain't heard from nobody. So I called the funeral director.
Yeah, it's last week. Last I heard it was last week. At that time, it was just.
They wanted me to say because it was free. It was free. But they wanted the church too.
Oh.
Well, we offered them the church.
Yeah, but they don't want the church no more.
They told us not to.
You know why? Because it wasn't free. Yeah, the church wasn't gonna charge them here tonight. But the director charges to move the body. Then they got to have a crew bring it in and out. That changes stuff.
That wasn't our responsibility.
But it ain't free no more. No. That's the green. That's the green. You heard from Alan, right?
Yeah, well, last week, he didn't tell me anything different.
Okay. Well, the funeral is going to be Friday the 31st. I'm sorry. 29th. I don't know where. Well,
Can you send me that? Can you send me that?
Yeah. The funeral going to be Friday the 29th. And the wake is Thursday the 28th. And what time you got that? 11 o'clock? 11 o'clock. Okay. So that's what we're kind of looking at today.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Reports, sick report, news. Let me say this and I'll let y'all go. Y'all know we lost Colin Powell. One of the best men walked earth. I almost say a fool, but I'm not gonna call him a fool. But he probably is. But they reported on Fox News that Colin Powell died from COVID-19, which he did die from complications of COVID-19. But you can't leave it like that. Food on Fox, they see, they don't want to tell y'all people dying from that shot. That means the shot ain't no good. Well, Colin Powell died with cancer. He was battling cancer, he had Parkinson's, and he had another blood cancer that weakened the effects of the vaccine. And that's probably why he ended up leaving that away. Now I brought all that up to say, first of all, I keep telling y'all, don't believe all this crap you hear on TV, because the news ain't news. So the one thing me and Donald Trump agreed on, fake news. Most of it is fake. I don't really have a lot of confidence in any of them. I don't care what channel it is. I don't really have a lot of confidence in none of them. They report what they want to report. You know. So, you know, you can take all that mess with a grain of salt. But then Whoopi Goldberg, I was listening to her, I was flipping through the channel. And Whoopi said it best. He said people ought to just use common sense. Yeah, there are people who have taken the shot and they died. But there are a lot more people who took it and they didn't die. Now you say you got 7,000 died with the shot. Look at all these millions of us walking around here took the shot and we lived. But that all kind of let you know. Seems like to me it's better. Look at all these people dying now because they did not take the shot. You see these people coming on TV saying, I didn't take the shot. Don't you be crazy like me. Make sure you take the shot. Seems like to me we ought to kind of take that as mind when you start making a decision. I just said all that to say, you know, use your common sense. And if you don't have none, go take some of mine. Go get your shots. Amen? Amen. Amen. My man heard my man praying. He wants to pray the closing prayer. So we're going to let him pray the closing prayer. Listen, did you want to pray before you pray the closing prayer?
Let the young man
We're going to let him do our closing prayer tonight.
Amen.
Let's all stand for the benediction. Come on up here, man. I want you to know you're doing what your mama can't do.
She prayed. Do her like
You pray tonight?
yes.
I don't pray tonight.
Don't do her.
That's my baby. I love her. You know I love my baby. Come on.
Heavenly Father, bless us through this day. Bless us throughout tomorrow, forever, and for the eternity. God, please bless us in your name. And please let us walk out this door green and clean to go.
Yes.
And like Pastor Haynes said, God deserves the best
Yes.
in his house.
Yes.
And please pray for the sick and shut-in.
Amen.